Hey gangsters, happy Friday. So, no crazy intro this time, we're just gonna jump right on in. Cause this topic is serious business. Actually, it's not. So the too long didn't read version. Is using reference okay? Yes. Use it a lot. Use much of it, as much as you can. So yeah, thanks for joining me. That's been this week's video. No. No, this is one of those things that artists and reference. It's like a battle of wills. It's a battle of. I think it all mixes. We talked about imposter syndrome a few weeks ago. I think a lot of this stuff is related. So I wanted to wax poetic for about 10 minutes to get that revenue, which I actually am like 40 million hours away from even being qualified for. So that's not it at all. It's just there's going to be a lot of back and forth on this topic, and there shouldn't be. But I just wanted to give this enough time to stretch out and just really talk about it. And you're seeing me do a sketch painting practice thing right now. Sorry, my dogs, you can probably hear her little nails hitting the floor. Let me take a drink of coffee and then we'll talk about kind of what we're looking at right now, but then also just in general, reference and using it, and should you feel guilty for using it, and how much should you use, and should you do exact copies. There's just a lot to this topic. So I want to try to touch on everything. I know I'm going to miss a lot, but we'll see what we can do. But a little sip of this maple coffee action. All right. So yeah, first of all, just use reference. Use it. Don't think you're less of a creative mind because you're using reference. If anything, the end product is going to be better for it. I know recently I've done pieces with no reference or very limited reference, as opposed to this one, which is like a direct, not a direct copy. Like I try to copy it as well as possible, but then after a while, what you're going to notice is I start to deviate a little from what the piece is, and start deviating a little bit from what the piece is, but that's fine. I'm a big fan of having the spirit of a reference, kind of trying to get the energy and the flow and the whatnot of what I'm looking at instead of a direct copy, because we already have the photograph. We already have this. This photograph's beautiful. Like it already exists. So why would I try to make a one-to-one of the reference and not add at least small tweaks or bits of personality or something like that? I think that's where the artist eye comes in. But the usage of reference has this weird misnomer, and I remember back in art school, 2004, 2005. God, has it been that long? Reference was that kind of no-no thing. It was a deal of, oh, well, what do you mean you looked at something whenever you did it? Like, there was a difference. You would do life drawing to where you would have a live model, or they would put a still life, or, you would have your realism drawing class to where you would go and you would look at reality and you would interpret it on the page and to the best of your ability, and it trained your eye for proportion and, perspective and, context of putting something in an area and putting something in context of the world around it. But then it was almost like that was a separate entity from like, oh, well, now I'm going to make a thing to turn in for class. I have to be a creative genius. I have to, stretch out and get something from the ether. Whatever artistic ethers out there, whatever Jimi Hendrix was tapped into, whatever the Beatles had, I have to get into that wavelength and create something from nothing. There was this like weird magician-y like sacred art of the artist, and you're not a true creator if you don't tap into that. And it's like, the older I get and the more I work in being pro now, is like, that's bullshit. Let's just call it what it is. You can get a muse, you can get inspiration, a reference can kickstart an idea, or you can have an idea that's kind of burrowed in, almost like a story idea, or just have these rumblings of different mechanics working around in your brain. But there's only one real way to make that come to fruition, and you don't even have to be a realistic or photorealistic artist to use reference. Use reference for what? Can you tell me right now what a tree looks like? Can you? I mean, in good enough detail, you can give me the general idea of a tree. Well, it has roots and the big trunk, and the trunk's bigger, and then as these limbs go further away from the base of the tree, they get shorter and thinner and weaker because they're not near the root, and then the leaves and the ones near the end fall first. And you can give this idea of what a tree is, but do you know what it looks like? Can you really fine-tune and render the mechanics, the bark, the layers, just the essence of what the tree really is, not what we think it is, but what it really is? And that's where reference comes into play. Because what type of tree? An oak tree is much different from, other types of tree. A palm tree, for instance. So location, where are you? What is the context? Are you on the beach? Are you on the coast? Are you in the middle of the woods? Are these the green Everest trees? Or, are you in the north or the south? Or where's your story taking place? So there's way more to it than a tree goes right here. Because whenever you start thinking in basic terms, that's great for a thumbnail sketch. It's awesome for thumbnails. It's great to here's where the tree is. Let me draw the little stick, the wide stick coming up with the weird broccoli cloud on top. You know what I'm talking about? Like the little, if you get a 6-year-old to draw a tree, you'll know what I mean. It's like the little stick, and then maybe a hole in the middle if they're really paying attention, because that's where the animal lives. You have that. I consider it, and I tell my students, it's a hieroglyphic. It's something you would see on the cave wall. And another good one is a heart. Whenever you see the heart, a little heart emoji, right? That is not what the heart looks like at all. But we know what that is, what it represents. So I think there's that difference between using reference and not. Is without reference, you're more likely to use something that represents something rather than actually rendering out the actual thing. And that's fine. I mean, there's a time and place for all of it. There's no right way or wrong way to use reference. It's just, it gets a bad rap. People have this pressure, and I still do. I have it somehow subconsciously baked into my mind that if I'm using reference, I'm cheating or something, which is insane. You're telling me that somehow I can make a better looking mountain than what exists in reality? Get out of here. There's no way. There's no way. I need to see it. I need to look at it. And you can build a visual library. I know Feng Zhu, I'm a big fan of Feng Zhu and design cinema. So if you're looking for stuff to kind of keep on in the background and learn through osmosis, I highly recommend design cinema. He comes at it from a very designer's perspective. He is solving problems. So he lives and dies by reference. He really does. And he talks about it a lot. And he's like, guys, I need it. Engineering and architecture. And you can't just, unless you're a dynamo, unless you're the greatest that's ever lived, you're not really going to think of that without looking at something else. I know I can't. I don't know the structure of an engine. Are you kidding me? If I were to draw an engine, I would draw a few circles and a piston. Pistons are things, right? You know what I mean? I think I know there has to be some sort of combustion for energy to produce, and the energy does a thing, but where does it go? What does the exhaust look like? Once you start getting to the actual nitty-gritty of bringing an idea to life, especially if you're going to work for a company, if you're part of a workflow, I'm lucky right now that I'm doing just pure illustration. So we can make up a lot. We can, whenever we're talking for Warhammer stuff, it's oh, well, we could use this as reference, and here's some old Gothic cathedrals, but it has to have a little bit of Warhammer. And what does that mean? What is that little bit of Warhammer? That's where that creativity comes in, because very much part of Warhammer and just tabletop gaming in general is the imagination. It's you are building your own roleplay. You're building your own army. You're using that kind of primal instinct of creation and creativity to make something come to life. So there has to be a balance. There has to be that balance of, okay, we need this to look like, old German Gothic architecture. However, it also needs a sci-fi 40,000K fantasy kick. So you get to play around, and as long as you have your structure there, which is primarily what I use reference for, and like what I've used it here for, is the structure of a face. I know what a face looks like. We look at faces all the time. We see ourselves in the mirror, we're brushing our teeth, we're talking to people, we're on Zoom calls, we're watching videos. But do we really know what a face looks like? It's passive. We see faces and hands and things like that more than anything, which is why when they don't look right, something's off. You know what I mean? Like you see a piece and you're like, well, this is a nice piece, but something's kind of off. And I mean, I would kind of argue the same thing for my piece right here. But what I did just to kind of prove a point to myself is that I would go ahead and keep some of these, I don't know, I guess you would call them mistakes. Keep some of those mistakes and try to enhance them. Enhance them to make them fit. And that's where you start getting into what I consider is, creativity. Or, creativity at the end of the day is just problem solving. So is there a way to solve the problem of making a mistake on a portrait, yet embracing that is not, it doesn't necessarily have to look exactly like the picture. Now, for things like master studies, go ahead and try your best to replicate, like duplicate, replicate, because it's going to teach you a lot on problem solving. But if you're creating your own deal, like what my workflow is from kind of beginning to end now, it used to literally be find references, put the references together, make a composition. Like photo bashing, almost. And sometimes it was photo bashing. I would just get photos, royalty-free photos or stock photos or photos I bought, put them together, and then like paint over it. And a lot of people are like, oh, that's not, that's cheating, man. You didn't create the idea, you didn't, and that's fine, whatever. But what it did teach me is to use these references, put them together into one formal idea, and kind of change the nature of what the message was. I look back at some of my old art, and I'm glad that I did it in regards to learning how to do the dexterity part of it, the actual act of making a composition, like literally building it from scratch using components. It taught me a lot about design. It taught me a lot about what makes a picture work, what makes it function, without having to, I'm going to draw every eyelash. But then if the composition didn't work, who cares? You know what I mean? So that photo bashy stuff, and I like it and I use it from time to time. But what I'm noticing more is I will get an idea, like, I'm going to make some canyons. And I'll kind of paint basic shapes. Then I'll go in and be like, where's the focal point? What is the focal point? Is it a ship? Is it a boat? Is it one of the canyon peaks? Is it like a person? Is it birds? Like, what is it? And then that's kind of where I start using reference, is I'm like, okay, let me make sure the birds look right, at least. Because if that's my focal point, people are going to look at it, so they might as well look like birds. So I'll do that, kind of see if there's any good photos, any good reference that I can find of that specific bird or something like it. Or if I want to create a bird, I'll look at old, illustrations of pterodactyls and eagles and, you know what I mean? And then you can start just thinking of things. But reference is critical for that, because I have to know how wings work. I don't have wings. I don't drink Red Bull. I said that with so much disdain too. I mean, Red Bull, God bless you, it's fine. but I don't have wings. I don't know what that looks like. So I need to look, and how does it function, and why are the feathers there instead of facing the other way? And that's where reference comes in. And it's not there to do the work for you. It's there to make sure you have a solid foundation and fundamental that you can work off of, because you cannot build a house without a foundation. You can't do it. You can have walls all day, you can have the most beautiful roof you've ever seen, but if there's no foundation, that thing's going to crumble super fast. And that's what your foundation and your reference is really there. It's to carry the weight. It's to do that heavy lifting that way. My goal, I'll put it this way, my goal is if I draw or if I make a piece of art with an airplane in it, I want people that know airplanes to be able to look and be like, wow, yeah, that's a good plane. I want them to be like, yeah, that would functionally fly. Because I think that functionality adds to the piece. I think it adds to the believability. I think it adds... It's so funny, and there's irony about this, and I think I'm going to discuss this at a later date. But working on awesome stuff like Warhammer, it's fake, but it's real. Like, it's that old meme of that dude crying about professional wrestling, like, it's real to me, damn it. It kind of has to be real to me. I have to be in a real place. I have to smell the air. I have to look around. I have to inhabit this area for 20 to 40 hours while I'm working on a piece for the rule books or, the player guides or whatever. I have to live there. I have to be part of that world because other people are also part of this world. Whenever they get the book, that's where they're going to go. It's in their mind, and my thing has to be a reference for them. They have to be able to look at my piece and start extrapolating ideas and be like, oh, you see this in this painting? Well, what if we took that and spun it on its head? And now I'm the DM and I'm running a roleplay game, and now these paintings give me this fuel to make sure the foundation's right. Oh, the reticle, the eye reticle for the gene stealer goes over here in this eye, and oh, their tattoo has to be like this, and oh, you know what I mean? So it's all feeding within itself. Like, we get the art direction, we get the lore. We're talking with Games Workshop, with Cubicle 7. We're talking with these companies. They have lore experts, genuine experts. All they do is they read and write this stuff all day. This is their career. They're geniuses. So you say, like, hey, if I did this, would that be cool? I don't want to I don't want to be the person that breaks the canon. God forbid. Oh, that, like, my palms are sweaty, mom's spaghetti, thinking about that stuff. But yeah, you want to make sure you're doing the right thing. And reference, whether it's visual reference, audio reference, use it because it gives you context. It gives you more of a foundation to work off of. And I think that's critical for believability. Not necessarily realism, but believability. Is your thing believable? Can I transport myself there mentally? Whether it's horror, fantasy, sci-fi, like whatever. Can I see myself there? Can I feel it? Can I feel the air? Can I, is it tangible? And I think that's critical, at least for an artist, in my opinion. I think it's a big responsibility being the purveyor of some people's imagination, and I don't take that responsibility lightly. So I think the least I can do is be accurate in my interpretation, and accurate, and make it knowledgeable enough, and make it grounded enough that people can relate, because I think that's important. I think relatability is art, and I think that's a critical part of this. But anyway, we kind of went off on like weird tangents, I guess, but hopefully the main idea is there. Use reference, guys. Don't be afraid of it. Hell, do exact copies, do photocopies like I'm doing here, do exact master studies, do photo bashes, figure out how this stuff works together, and your art is going to get better for it, and don't be afraid of it. And I know every once in a while I have to talk to myself and be like, listen, you don't have to create everything from that ether, from that fictional, weird, like, oh, what wavelength am I on, man? What does the color red mean, bro? Whoa, like trippy, whatever. At the end of the day, that's all well and good, but you also got to make some art. You also got to make some stuff. I'm very much a person of action. Like, all right, yeah, I love the idea. Let's see it. And how do you see it? You have to see it by noticing the world around you. And what better way than use reference? There's great reference packs out there if you go to like QBrush and Gumroad, and great reference stuff. Howard Lyons and Graphic Studios, and just great work all the way around. ArtStation, Marketplace, all that stuff. Speaking of, I got a new brush pack, the Platinum Brush Pack. You guys should pick it up. It's real good. Got real good reviews on it. It was a trending product on QBrush the other day, and it only came out like 2 days ago. So, awesome. I like it. But yeah, my favorite brushes, the brushes I use all the time, and the brushes that are bringing you Warhammer 40k, Wrath and Glory. Absolutely true. I've been using those religiously. So if you want Warhammer brushes, you got them, man. There they are. But I hope you guys found some useful stuff here. Let me know what you think in the comments. What's your relationship with reference? How does it make you feel using reference? Do you feel like you're cheating, or do you feel like you actually just crucially need this? The longer I'm in the business, the more I use reference. Just the more the better. The pieces look better. The foundation's better. I work with better confidence because I know stuff looks right. Imagine if you had answers to a test and every answer was the correct answer for every question. That's what reference is. Why would you not do that? Your art directors will thank you. Your other artists will thank you because you're holding up your end of that bargain. But yeah, go out, learn, just view stuff, take your phone, take pictures, make your own reference. Just, there's so much out there, man. Just enjoy the world, really engross yourself in it and be part of it. And yeah, just go out, wear a mask, but live a little. Go out and find that reference, man. Use that believability in your art. But anyways, that's my time. I'm sipping on some more coffee. Yeah, hit me up in the comments. It's always a pleasure. Hope you guys are staying safe. But until we meet again, go make some cool paintings, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.